Hi, I'm Brian Collins, author of Step Off the Porch and Start Your Own Business. There's 5 million new business licenses granted every year, and sadly, 25% of them don't make it past the first year. I'm here to change that. I can help you start your business and be successful. My podcast is going to walk you through all of that. Let's get started now. Hello, I'm Brian Collins. Step Off the Porch and Start Your Own Business is my business book. This is podcast 4. We've done an intro podcast. We did a discussion on how to start your business. We did a discussion on how to raise seed money for businesses. And this is podcast 4. I was asked by the producers, Larry and Eric, to give an example of a hypothetical business that you could put together in 5 minutes or less and the steps you have to go through. Well, I've got one better. I have a real business I'm going to cover in 5 minutes, what you need to go through. And I'll start by saying this. My book, Step Off the Porch and Start Your Own Business, is written and designed. The website is designed to help people start their own business, literally. It's a very easy read. It doesn't have a lot of graphs and chapters in there about stuff that doesn't apply to the real world. I've got 4 businesses that I started all separately, very different businesses. I knew nothing about them. So if I can start a business, you can start a business, and I'm here to help you. I got a book buyback guarantee. I've got an Ask Brian page in there where you send me answers to the first 3 questions you're going to encounter. I want to help you. I want to engage with you. So we're going to talk about a simple business here. I took over the rights to a fledgling board game when I was running my first venture, and I was fixing those 2 real estate companies that were bankrupt. In the middle of that, I was approached, and somebody said, here's, looked like an old Monopoly box, and it had some bits and pieces in there. And they said, there's a name on this game, but we haven't paid for the trademark yet. Can you do anything with it? And I said, okay, I've never done this before as well. So I took over this board game from this gentleman, had a contract with him. I changed the box to look like a Trivial Pursuit box. I will just hold this up here. And it's a real estate game, and it's called For Sale, a real estate game. And what I did was I got the rights to sell this inside the Century 21 Arena back in the 80s, because they were the biggest real estate organization around the world at the time. The whole concept of this game was the name For Sale was trademarked, which was interesting. I don't know how we got that, but we did. This board game was better than Monopoly because it had a sliding scale of interest rates, which affected the value of all the property. So I decided I was going to print, produce, and sell these board games inside the Century 21 system. I had 2 Century 21 franchises that I'd fixed and took over, and I was still owning those. I sold them 2 years after I bought them, but this happened in the middle. I had a challenge. This game, in order for this game to be successful, I had to find a way that it would be personalized. So the Century 21 realtor base comes to me and say, okay, great. You're telling me to give this game away. So it sits on the coffee table. The people that I just sold a house to, I sold their listing. Rather than giving them a bottle of wine or some flowers, this board game can hang around. How is it going to dial back to me? I said, okay, well, we need to put your business card on the game. Well, how do we do that? With tape, that's not going to work. With staples, that's not going to work. So this is my business, and we're going to cover it in 6 steps. We're going to cover it in 5 minutes. So I had to create a business card holder that would self-laminate on the surface of each board game. So when the realtor gave it away as a closing gift, his business card was resident on the surface of the board game for as long as the board game was in that person's house for other people to see, referrals, so on and so forth. So that's what I had to do. Okay. Here's a snap business in 5 minutes. Okay. What is the nature of your business? My business is a self-laminating business card holder, as I've shown on the cover of this actual board game. And I'm down to like 2 left. I made 10,000 of these, and I sold them inside the Century 21 system, 10,000. Okay, so I needed to have a self-laminate. So who's going to buy my product? Well, I'm trying to sell these boxes to realtors to give them away as gifts inside the Century 21 system. But in order for that to work, I need a self-laminating product that will seal the business card, and it came in 2 layers, so they were stuck together. The first one, you'd peel it off, stick it on the box. The second one, you slide your card in and roll a little sheet on the top. Now it's self-laminated. So that's how it worked. Who's going to buy my product? So I've designed what the product is going to be, what I need it to be. Who's going to buy my product? Effectively, any person that's going to give away this gift inside the Century 21 system at that time needs to laminate their business card on the surface so that it personalizes the gift and has kickback value to the realtor who, well, not kickback, but gives a referral back to them if anybody else sees it. So that was who was going to buy my product. How am I going to fund this? That's the third thing that you have to deal with. And we've covered this in the previous podcast. How am I going to fund the start of this business? Well, producing the board game was a cost unto itself. Okay. What I did is I formed a little company called Executive Marketing Supplies, and some other people joined me in that, and they bought some of the shares of that company and put enough money in there that we could go to a manufacturer of board games in Toronto and get the games printed. And I had to go to California a number of times to get the color, the works, and all the coding and trademarks approved by the head office, which they did. They stamped it and they loved it. So that's business. Who's going to buy the product and how am I funding it? I brought funding in from 3 other people to cover the cost of the first 5,000 of 10,000 board games that we were going to produce. And I produced them in 5,000 lots because there was an economic benefit to produce them in that size. Any smaller than the cost would have been too high. Okay. What was the corporate structure? I used a C Corp, not an LLC. I used a C Corp, and we had shares. The corporation owned the rights to the game and any revenue streams from there. And we were all shareholders in that company. And that was easy to put together. And everybody knew that their money went in. And we just said, we're going to pay people back their money first in the order that it came in. I was going to be last, and they put their money in. Whoever put in $15,000 was going to get that back, so on and so forth, out of the profits. And then we were going to divide the profits after that as we went forward. So that's the corporate structure. So far, I've covered what is the business, who's going to buy the product, how am I going to fund the product, what was the corporate structure, sales and marketing. Okay, so now I had to go to the conventions and this and that and have this listed through the catalog of products that the realtors could buy that had the logo Century 21 on it. They could use for closing gifts. So I was there. I was at conventions, and as people walked by, I had staff, and they spoke about the value of giving away something that sat on the table of the house that was related to a buy and sell motion of a house. So a real estate board game that had, you went around the board and you rolled the dice, and the value of the real estate went up and down based on the interest rates and this and that. It's a very realistic game, especially in today's market. So I marketed this game and the business card holder together. So I combined them. I said, I need X dollars for the game. I need X dollars for the business card holder. I just married the cost together. So they didn't look at it as they were buying a game and a business card holder. They're just buying a product they can use for as a nice closing gift that's very unique and is specific at that time to the Century 21 system. None of the other big real estate organizations had anything similar to that would sit on a coffee table. Yeah, a glass or a bottle of wine's nice, or flowers are nice, but they're gone in a couple of days and they don't remember the realtor's name. Years later, somebody's going to look at this and go, well, who's this guy? Well, this guy sold me this house, look at this great game. And it's actually fun to play. So what I did was I said, I'm going to combine the business card holder with the game for one price. It gets marketed through the catalog. It gets marketed at the conventions, and that's how it was promoted. And I moved 10,000 of those games, and I sold them all. Now, the last thing in the business conversation today, and there's 6 steps, is the revenues. Okay, the revenue was adequate enough to pay for the cost of the manufacturing, the shipping, and the laminating business card holder. I actually made 15,000 of those business card holders in one shot. I got a better price, and I had 5,000 left over. And I had realtors coming to me saying, hey, can I just buy some of those business card holders? I want to use that for other marketing materials I have. whether it's a presentation, an open house, whatever, and I can slap my business card on there. It looks better than just having a staple going through it, and it doesn't work itself off. So in a nutshell, Eric, Larry, and everybody that's listening to me, I've just described a product that I had to create to facilitate a personalized closing gift for realtors inside a particular real estate system. I had it manufactured near to where the games were being produced in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I sold those games all through North America. And the business card holder did exactly what it was supposed to do. It still works. There's an old business card of mine on this box back in the day when I used to own some franchises that I turned around, and I talk about those in my book, Step Off the Porch and Start Your Own Business, or at 6, the number 6, stepbiz.com. I talk about this board game at the end of my book. I actually had another board game that came to me from, was involving with Wayne Gretzky's dad and Walter Gretzky, dear Walter Gretzky, and I put that together. But that's another story for another day. Anyways, so here's the 6 steps. This is a fast business in 5 minutes. What's the product? Who's going to buy it? How are you going to finance it? What's the corporate structure? Where's the sales and marketing? And how do the revenues affect the outcome? The revenues paid all the bills. We only sold 10,000 because I sold my franchises and I moved on to other things. We probably could have sold more. In a nutshell, Eric and Larry, that's your sample business with the 6 things everybody's going to have to run into to think of, to move forward, and to have a start of revenue for the start of success. In a nutshell, I open the floor to the gentlemen and their questions.
Well, I know for me, one, and I think this is a good preview for the next episode, which is marketing. But how important, I'll pose the question and then we can wait till the next episode to get into it, is how important is it to pick an industry that you know things about?
Well, I would like to tell you that I spent a lot of time analyzing the points, the very valuable points, Larry, that you just brought up when I was starting businesses. I did not. I did not, and some of the articles that I've had done and podcasts that I've done on my book website, and I even saw a printed version from one of the gentlemen, Don Hutchinson, who we're doing some work with him and his podcast and his veterans group. I specifically say I tend to jump into things that scare me and I know nothing about. So I'm not kidding when I say I do that. It's like jumping into a foxhole and people are shooting at you, and they're shooting at you from all different angles. You have no clue. You got to figure out, how am I going to turn this around to something positive? And for some reason, I enjoy doing that. I'm not suggesting everybody else does that. I'm suggesting what you said, Larry, is analyze the marketplace, analyze the opportunities, analyze the risk-reward relationship between dollars in, time in, energy in, and if there's too many commas in the equation, in other words, this has to happen, if this has to happen, if there's more than 3 ifs in the equation, don't do it. Okay,
Right.
that's too many ifs. One's normal, 2 you can live with, 3 or 4. 99% of the 3 or 4 ifs in the equation has to happen for a business to start. Probably not going to be successful. Okay, and for small people that are staking their own assets, their own money, their friends' money, their family's money, if there's too many ifs in the equation, you need to rethink what your business is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And how important is it? Because I think, it's like when you make a movie or when you open a business and get to open that same business or other businesses back to back, back to back. I think once you get past one, it becomes a little bit more, I don't want to say easy, but you know what to expect, kind of. But how important is it to always think big and to dream big, but have absolute reality of I have to do this to get to that. Kind of like what you were talking about, right?
Uh,
And
yep.
I it's almost like because we had talked previously about Eric's hot dog stand.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
he starts small
Yep.
and he decides, you know, I want to go bigger, but I have to do these things. I have to make sure I'm selling this much in order to fund the next like little cart or whatever,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Well, there's an old saying. I didn't create the saying, but there's an old saying that, go big or stay on the porch. So um, I have to say it makes a lot of sense. But getting off the porch, you don't have to jump into the deep end of the swimming pool. Wade into the
Right,
shallow
right.
end, figure out how to swim a little bit, go back and forth. Attract some positive feedback for your first little venture, whether it's a hot dog stand or a board game manufacturing or whatever else. Attract some positive results before you decide to go to the next level. And every time you decide to open that next location, and I know I worked in the franchise world for a couple of years. I was an auditor for the franchise system before I fixed those real estate companies. Every time you want to add another layer, it's extremely important that you analyze what's successful for the first one or two that you have and try to replicate that. And it could be location, could be timing, could be staff, could be, you know, if it's a brick and mortar, where you are and how easy it is for people to get there. If it's online, that's a whole different world. You don't have to worry about them parking out front and is there a parking spot. But at the same time, in the online world, how many other portals are creating something similar to what you're marketing? So there's give and take in all of this. But yeah, you want to analyze, Larry and Eric, you want to analyze the opportunity as best you can. Don't do what I did and just jump in and go. Analyze it best you can. Buy my book. Send me the answers to the first three questions and let me
Yeah.
just help walk you through. And when you don't want to listen to me anymore, that's fine. But I'm there to help you to get started, if that answers your question.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I don't know how much more plain that you can make and how easy really it is to really contact you and almost be, I mean, for the lack of a better, almost like a mentor to help
I
everybody.
love the word mentor. I love that because I was a hockey coach for my son. I was a baseball coach for my son. I helped him on the track team. There was a lot of other boys on his hockey team and his baseball team and similar guys on the track team, but hockey and baseball, there were a lot of people that showed up that had just pure raw talent, but had never been exposed to the sport before. There was a lot of people that showed up that had zero talent, but had 1,000% heart.
Right.
So I went out of my way to make sure that each of those people that I was coaching saw something positive in what they did each day, whether it was a practice or a game, and even in games when we just got our hats handed to us. I pointed out that, it wasn't that we lost. The other team was just a whole lot better. You know, that's not bad on us. That's just a 2 5 5s for them because they nailed it. And next week, maybe that's us. So I like mentoring. I've helped some other people already um, over the years before I even wrote my book. And that kind of was one of the reasons my son said, Dad, you should probably write a book and just get it out there because now you can talk to a lot of people. And I talk to a lot of people in business, people that want to start businesses, people that want to improve their business, people who want to solve a challenge. I've always been there to help. So it's easy for people to get a hold of me from my book or the website. Very simple. And because I got a buyback guarantee, don't worry about the cost of the book. And by the way, I went to the bookstore the other day and it's way cheaper than a whole lot of other books on businesses that are this thick. And when I open the chapters, graphs and curves and slopes and intersections, I got a degree in commerce and business and in accounting, and I have that stuff. I'm going, I have no idea what this is. And I'm not sure how it applies to the real world when you're trying to make a product and sell something and make a buck. I don't know what any of that stuff is. And, I read it, I understood it, but going, I couldn't explain that to somebody. If you can't explain your business concept to somebody in less than 15, 20 seconds, it's probably too complicated.
Right. Right.
Simple stuff moves this world. Complicated stuff, not so much.
Right.
If that answers your question.
Yeah. Eric, before we start wrapping up, I would like to talk a little bit about our next episode.
Okay.
Go for it. This is going to be good.
Let me jump in, Eric. Let me jump in.
Oh yeah.
The next episode is 5, and I'm going to talk about marketing in my book, Step Off the Porch, Start Your Own Business. I talk about marketing in each of my 4 ventures. The ventures are completely different. I knew nothing about any of them when I started. But if you don't have successful marketing, I'm just going to throw you a little teaser, Larry and Eric, a little teaser.
Okay.
We will talk about venture 2 in my book, which I got an option for 2 concrete and steel condo buildings that I'm now residing in and looking out over the water 30 years ago. I took an option which I paid 0 for it. And I went to Hong Kong and I sold some condos in this development. And some really positive things came out of that, which will just blow you away at what happened, how little I had to invest to turn some positive revenues my way. And I will touch base on that, on the marketing of that. I had to market that in Hong Kong. I had to remarket it when I came back to town. I made them buy my option back for me. Anyways, I'm just teasing you with one of the 4 things we're going to talk about. And I love the marketing section. And at the end of that, we're going to jump right into how to sell your business when it's time to sell your business.
Oh,
awesome.
I love it.
Okay. And my 3rd business, I probably should have sold it sooner than I did. I waited too long, and the illness of my wife, which she succumbed to, was the reason that I didn't finish selling it when I should have sold it. I was completely distracted. Families first. But anyways, we'll touch base on that stuff on podcast 5. And I'm going to say thank you, Eric. Thank you, Larry. And I hope my comments on how to start a simple business and the 6 things you got to go through help somebody when they're listening. And yes, they can get a hold of me at 6stepbiz.com. And that's where my book will be available. And I'm going to sign off, gentlemen. I look forward to the next podcast, number 5.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. And now you need to get off your porch and start your business.